What's going on, everybody? Just want to give a updated video on what's going on. I made a little bit of backtracking on the project to make some critical adjustments along the way. So as you can see, a lot of the sheetrock's been taken off temporarily to make some adjustments. I'll explain kind of what those are in just a moment, but just to give you a quick view of what's going on here. What I did was, what kind of prompted all this is I wasn't sure if this room was going to be able to accommodate a projector, and the reason is because of the ceiling height and the ductwork. You know, I'm dealing with 7-foot ceilings, so it's not ideal, but it, again, you kind of have to take what you have and make the best out of it. So with that, I wasn't really sure with this drop beam here if the projector was going to be able to clear both the insulated HVAC as well as the heads of those that are seated roughly in the middle. So what I did was I just got a projector in, mounted it on some buckets, roughly where it's going to be placed, which is back here, which is right in the middle of these two walls, equidistant between them. The front wall here had all sheetrock on it, so it was just kind of like a screen, more or less. And so played around with the height of the projector and the seating placement, and what I figured out is that the great thing was that yes, I could have a projector work for this room. It was able to clear the HVAC and the beam, and it was able to clear the top of my head as well. However, the initial spot where I was thinking that the seating was going to go would be too far towards this wall or too close to this wall. If I sat where I initially had planned, which was roughly right around here, then the projector, there'd be a shadow of my head on the screen. So what I had to do was I had to back everything up. And so obviously with a theater, you want the side surround speakers to be in line and at ear level of the main listening position. So if we're seated back several feet, we have to make an adjustment for the speakers. And so in this situation, what I did was I moved the speaker over to the farthest that I possibly can to this bay here. And as you see here, the rough cutout, 42 by 8.5. So this is height, width, and depth. 150 inches roughly from the front wall, and the midpoint of the speakers like 50 inches off the floor. So this is basically right in line with where the seating position is going to be based upon the testing. So that required an adjustment of both these speakers as well. And then one other thing that was a factor in this is that prior I had the rear left and right surround speakers here and then over here, which was what I initially had planned, but I wasn't super confident in that. And the reason is because the distance between these two speakers is very, very close. Although the distances between the left and right was equal to the opposing wall, I was concerned about the separation. So I decided to go with a smaller door. So instead of going with a 42-inch door, I decided to go with a 36-inch door and basically move everything over to this side. So I'm a lot happier with this setup. I'm fairly confident that I'm going to be able to get everything through the 36-inch door as far as loading in the couches, all the equipment and everything, and moving this rear surround speakers from where they are here to the closest on this bay here, and then the corresponding area over here is going to make a massive improvement to the separation, so that when you're seated in the theater and you're watching a movie, you hear sounds behind you, the audible separation will be much more apparent to the person that's enjoying the movie. So that's a huge thing. So in order to do that, we had to just simply take off some of the sheetrock panels. All this was done prior to compound. So thank God that this was something that I just ran through in my mind, ran over a bunch of scenarios and options as far as what we can do, and just made the call on it before the tape and the compound went up. That would be basically the point of no return. Taking the sheetrock panels on and off is no big deal. Yeah, it's more work, but it's not like it's the degree of intrusion of taking out panels that had already been taped and compounded. So it required the removal of the panels in the back wall, some of the panels in the ceiling. Bringing the projector in here really brought a lot of things into perspective for me. Another thing was I got a feel for what screen size I actually can go with. And so that dictated in large part where the speakers would go on the front stage. Because of the movement of the projector and where things were previously, I found out I was able to get things a little bit bigger than before. So as you can see here, I'm going to show you guys the cutouts, like right over here, that hole there. The receptacles were roughly, I don't know, call it 8-10 inches higher before, and the optimal screen size was bigger than where the receptacles were. So in other words, the receptacles were in the way of that. So I need the screen obviously to come down and be above the top of the receptacles. And so made the decision to pull the sheetrock off this wall, move the receptacles down to 12.5 inches off of the finished floor, which is where they are right now, and we added a significant amount of extra items. So we've got conduit piping, 3/4 inch piping, as well as dedicated lines. The objective of the conduit is to ensure that if there's any cables that need to be added in or routed over to the audio closet, that we can do it behind the wall and make it much more clean of a setup versus running cable along the base of the wall or something like that. I did, again, put those pass-throughs there as kind of an emergency if needed situation. But the objective of the conduit is to utilize that for any cables. So for example, each subwoofer is going to have a power and then balanced XLR. So the 240 would be the power, and then the XLR would be snaked through the conduit piping over into the audio closet into the rack. And another example would be for the dedicated 20 amp circuit and the conduit there. The amplifier would be plugged into the dedicated 20 amp circuit, and the amplifier wires, any type of pre-outs that are going to be going to the preamp processor for the home theater, will go through the conduit piping. So again, balanced XLR, potentially some RCA cables or anything else that would go through the conduit piping over to the AV rack. This has been many revisions, but this is the final product here. And just in case we have a need for an in-wall center channel, I've got a cutout here that's going to be installed so that channel right here, this channel is going to be cut, and we're going to have just a space here for an in-wall center channel should that be an option to pursue in the future. But for the time being, right now, it's going to be floor standing left, center, and right box speakers that are going to be in the room, and then everything else is going to be in wall. So, all right, so this is the setup on the front wall. So we have two pass-throughs. Those are going to be just above the baseboard. So if there's any need to snake cable that's in the room over to the AV rack, that's what those will be for. And then going in from the left-hand side to the right-hand side, we have a conduit pipe and a 110 regular plug. And in front of this is going to be the left speaker. Moving along, we have conduit on the left and a 240 on the right. This is going to be the spot for subwoofer number 1. And moving to the right, we have a dedicated 20 amp on the left and a conduit on the right. And then dead center, we have a receptacle with 2 plugs, and then 4 Cat 6A Ethernet on the right hand side. This brown plug here is going to be moved up to this area right in here, which is going to be on this side actually, but that's going to be the bottom of the screen, and that will be the plug to power the Philips Hue lights around the screen. And then moving along again, we have another conduit and a dedicated 20 amp to the right there. Moving to the right again, we have our second conduit and 240 for the subwoofer number 2. And on the end, we have a regular 110 and a conduit. This is going to be right in back of the right-hand speaker. Because of the change in placement of where the screen is going to be, we widened the speakers as well. As a rule of thumb, the Atmos speakers in a theater should be in line with the front left and right speakers. So Initially, we had them much closer together. You can see the hole for it right there. We moved them to here, which is in line with where we can place the right speaker. So we have this one here, front Atmos right, and then front Atmos left, and these are in line. And they're more or less in line with the rear surrounds as well. So that was huge. So we adjusted that, and we had to take off the ceiling panels in order to do that. A lot of progress. So tomorrow, what's gonna happen is these pieces of sheetrock that are all pre-cut are gonna go back on the wall, and the taping will begin tomorrow in this room. So things should move along quite nicely. Of course, in here, the taping is complete for the first round. I'm not sure how many rounds there are, but there's gonna be at least 2. So it's looking really good, coming together really, really good.